Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amor de Soi Wellness. And Donovan Jensen is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hi, everyone. So today I'm really excited to introduce our very first guest to Happy Talks, Dr. Joylyn Maniaci. And I would love to say a little about her and then we'll get into questions. So Dr. Maniaci is an expert in communication and relationship dynamics. She is a creatrix and founder of the Happiness Clinic, combining her personal experience with abuse, eating disorders, depression, and suicide with her training in naturopathic medicine, psychology, crania-sacral therapy, athletics, and various energetic modalities. She offers a truly holistic and integrative approach to health that is based on health with happiness, which we love, obviously, being the maker and measure of success. This self-described word nerd can identify why you feel out of touch and unhappy and give you the tools to be confident in yourself, happy as fuck. Decided we're gonna drop the F-bomb today. And know without a doubt that things don't happen to you. You happen to things. So please welcome Dr. Joylyn Maniaci.
Hi there. Thank you. It's so nice to join you guys. I'm really honored you asked and super excited to talk about happiness.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you here. So why don't we start by just, why don't you share a little about your story and how you became a doctor and how you started the Happiness Clinic?
All right. Well, it's long, so I'll see what I can do to shorten it up since I've been known to be quite verbose. The word nerd comes out that way sometimes. But I, more or less just interested in bodies. But I went into naturopathic medicine knowing that conventional medicine had not helped me, and I had a lot of help with a more holistic approach to depression, finding I was actually more like adrenal fatigue. Mm-hmm. But I did go in and out of medical school with an intact eating disorder and still struggling with the depression and suicide. And it wasn't till I really kind of threw myself more into the life coaching part where things actually started to change. And so, because the coaching part just kind of gave it a little bit of a bend in how to approach it and bring everything together instead of making it only diet, only homeopathy, only one thing, but just really bring everything together. Mm-hmm. And with the energetic modalities and looking more at the dynamics of what's going on in the subconscious and behind the scenes to really see how, it takes a village to raise a child and how some of this was a product of conditioning program and part of the family that I came up in. And then being able to kind of tease that out, give it space, and actually really get beyond it, like come out of it and not feel like I'm just recovering or surviving or something, but actually coming out on the other side. So, and what I tell a lot of people as far as how I practice, I just did so much wrong and the long and hard way that I'm like, here's the cliff notes. Just learn from my mistakes so you can get there faster because there's really no need to take this many loops, swoops, and swirls. Like there's a little bit more of a direct line. And just, I also think that if you can laugh at it, you've already changed it. Like there's that amount of space to where you're looking at it from a different way. So just having some sort of humor and even playing with some of the things that we call flaws actually just makes the whole process go a little bit faster rather than diving and crying and getting all sad about it again. So happiness was what I was after, but it's also the choice that actually makes getting there faster. So it's a weird sort of quantum physics wormhole kind of thing.
Oh, what an incredible journey. And I can really resonate with what you shared about, the ups and downs and utilizing various tools and really taking, Donovan and I are both, an advocate for taking actions to achieve your mental, emotional well-being and just to be happy that life isn't just about being symptom free. It's also about thriving in your life and feeling good in your life, whatever that might look like.
Yeah, totally. And it's not about doing it right or just going through the motions either. It's actually, just finding fun and joy in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I had a question in terms of, during that process, was there a specific, like a tool that you found, or an event, or like something that happened that you can pinpoint that really helped like change? You said you're kind of on this one path where like things got a little bit better than worse, then better than worse. Was there anything like any specific tool or event that helped you go towards this like more upward trajectory?
Yeah, there was actually a ton. And what's great is when you call it a journey, you can see it that way. So there were big leaps along the way, even with the more conventional tools. But the thing that really like helped it go light speed was when I stopped looking for what was wrong with me. Because really at the bottom of it all was thinking that I was missing something, like I was actually lacking something that allowed other people to be happy, and I just couldn't have that. And so all of my search and work was to fix that thing. And then when I took the focus off of fixing it and actually just being like, what do happy people do? What does happiness feel like? Because I know I've had it here and there. When do I feel the most me? When I just shifted my attention to that, that's when everything started to shift and go a lot faster.
Wow, I love it. That's
great.
Yeah, so I know you're working on relationships primarily in your clinic, specifically marriage and relationships. Do you want to speak a little to that and what you're up to with that?
Totally. So with relationships, I almost sort of fell into it because along the process, there was a lot of mindfulness practices, meditation and things. And we tend to think of the monks in a cave in Tibet. And I would always joke and say, if you want to be enlightened, get in a relationship because all your shit will come up like right immediately when you're faced with somebody else.
Right.
So I was like, you don't have to be in a cave. So there was a lot that I learned about myself, right? Like throughout relationships, but then definitely going into the marriage aspect of it. And when you sort of, I mean, nothing's totally set in stone, but you kind of take off the, well, I can just leave kind of thing because it takes a lot of money and complicated legal stuff to do that. So it's how do I stay and be me? And what was supposed to be so easy and fun, our first year was really, really hard. And how do you get through that? And just seeing that there was a lot to be learned and the relationship got better the more I showed up as me instead of who I thought I should be. And I didn't see anybody else really talking about this. And so I just started talking about this. But when I developed the 90-day relationship remodel, which is sort of like the signature program, I originally had couples in mind, but it has always been an individual program because the relationship that's always at the foundation of any of them is the relationship you have with yourself. So it's always coming to correcting or getting at the root of insecurity and miscommunication, because those two things are at the bottom of any relationship discord. And there's so much like the insecurities, just like a hole in the boat. It's our energy leak, so it's ours to find. We may or may not have been the cause. You know, a lot of the wounding is early childhood, but it's still ours, and it's still ours to look at and fix. And when we do that, the triggering kind of eases. We don't need the validation. We don't feel as insecure. We're not triggered as easy. And since we're no longer leaking the energy, our confidence rises. And then with the communication piece, our subconscious is always on. It's always recording, and it just loops. So a lot of what we're saying is reasons and justifications for why we can't have what we want. Or we give a lot of attention to what we don't want instead of really paying attention and talking about what we would like. And our subconscious just remembers all that. And it is not a creative process. So whenever you're looking for evidence or something, it just goes backwards. It goes to the past. So seeing how once you start looking at your future and where you'd like to go, just by changing your focus, you've actually already made a quantum leap just there. And so just putting that all together, and all of my clients so far have been coming because they would like their relationship to get better. And a lot of times they know exactly what their husband is doing that could make it better, but still kind of knowing it's up to me, because we are the only things we actually have power and control to change.
Right.
And once we get that, and then and not coming from we're going to fix what's wrong with us, but actually see what needs to be healed and what am I good at that I can build on. Like coming at it from that direction, it just makes change happen without having to try it or force it or push it. So that's how I guess it just kind of all came together. And I do have, like I said, the word nerdery. I'm keen on the words people use that can pick up where they're stuck in a subconscious loop or stuck in judgment. Like should is one of those words, you know, people are shooting all over themselves, you know, but that kind of keeps you in the same place. So it's just little shifts and tweaks, and sometimes just somebody not being in the woods with, you know, like to say, hey, take 2 more steps and you're there. You know, hey, it doesn't feel great, but you're actually doing great, you know, because it is a process and sometimes it doesn't feel good. And if you are new at the process, it's just nice to have a coach who can reflect that back to you and say, you're doing great, just keep going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. And I've taken on a lot of coaching myself, and it's made a huge difference in my own happiness. And I think, like, based on what you said about we are personally responsible for our own happiness in a relationship. It's like, yeah, it'd be easy to say, oh, if he would just do the dishes more, then I would be happy. But instead of just being like, this is how it is, being responsible for your own happiness versus like blaming others for why you don't have happiness makes a big difference.
Totally.
Gives you the power.
Yeah. And trust me, I tried really hard to tell my husband, this is yours.
This is your problem.
If you did this, I'd be happier, you know? And I used a lot of energy on that, and it just didn't actually get anything to change. So when the scientist thinking cap actually came on, I was like, this experiment isn't working. Maybe I should just try something else.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of reading with Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he actually explains like so eloquently, like the brainwave patterns that we're in, that's actually why we're looking outside for the problem. And you can shift all of that and go into it. And it isn't a lot of work. It's some effort at the beginning, but then we start changing our brains and how we're looking at things. And then things just kind of unlock without so much force.
Yeah. I see it as like a muscle that you have to exercise, that it's just going to happen where you're going to make judgments and be annoyed, especially like in lockdown. My partner like super annoying me more than ever. So I have to like give it up and just like not let it get to me. And that it's just like, it's let it go. You know, I'm responsible for my own happiness, and that is what I can control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Donovan, did you have any thoughts about what she said?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, and this is going back to what you mentioned at the start, but like I know for me when I started into my relationship, like going into it, I felt very grounded. Like I had all the tools that I needed to deal with pretty much all situations. But then when there's another person involved, like a lot of the tools that I used to use for things together, like as a team, those things don't work. Like previously, one of the best ways for me to deal with frustration or something is to just walk out, just leave, and then come back to it. And I hadn't developed any other tools, but like the few times that we'd get into heated arguments, when I did that for her, that was like an extra trigger point of like, what are you doing? So that's one of the things that I had to learn is like not just getting all my stuff together, because I felt like I'm in a really good place now, but also some of the tools that I was using, having to expand my arsenal for like certain feelings or emotions or things like that. So that's one of the things that's been really, it's been good, but also a struggle. Like you said, the process has been a little bit hard at times, but that's one of the big things for me is even the tools that were working before, I needed different ones or to use them differently in my relationship.
Sure, and I can speak to that some, as far as my husband and I had a very similar dynamic. That was his way. Poof, gone. Like, and I'll come back and it will either be gone or I will have been able to deal with it with that space. And to me, that was abandonment and actual complete disrespect. And what's kind of interesting is actually both are true, because both points of views are totally valid. And I know I say this and everybody's like, yeah, I totally, duh. But there are going to be times where you just disagree and you just don't value or work in the same way. And a lot of people get this cognitively, but then when it's an action, it just feels like, let's just quit, because it's like we're just incompatible. And it's really just coming to broaden our ability to be in disagreement and to allow another person to be as valid as ours without making ours wrong or theirs wrong. But with the tool of, if you need space, and this is sometimes things that I actually tell women, give them more space than you're comfortable with. And it's not always men need space, women don't, but there's a generality to that. But if you need to walk around and leave because you need the space, you tell her, I need space and I'll be back in this amount of time. Because then that allays the fear of you're leaving and you're never gonna talk about it again. And it also addresses her, I know you need to be here, but I can't, I'm not equipped to talk about it right now. And it will be you having to put a little effort into saying, I know you'd like to talk about it, I need space, here's a time frame of space that I'm going to give myself. And her also allowing you to have that, because that will be practice on her part too, to just be like, because me, I'm like, we go till this is done, because that's how me and my sisters fight, you know? And I kept fighting with him as if he was one of my sisters, and recognizing like it would just get worse and worse and worse. So finally I was like, I have to do something different. I can't keep demanding him to be that way. And I did not like it, I will tell you. And I was not good at it at first, for sure, to be like, okay, half hour. Yeah, I will not spontaneously combust in a half hour, although I did doubt it until it actually happened a couple of times. And so it really is, like you said, a muscle to practice.
Oh, absolutely. I can relate. And that's actually a tool that I've utilized in my own relationship, because like you, I'd be like, no, we're talking this out till we're done. Absolutely. But I realize we can't actually listen to each other when we're both reacting and triggered. So it just escalates and it just makes it worse. And so we have decided, yes, we need space to be calm, process, and just like when we're calm and when we can actually listen to each other, then we can talk and resolve whatever issue that we have. Versus like the worst time is when we're in a car where we can't just like walk. that is when it escalates usually. Yeah.
And it's funny because it sounds ridiculous, but I remember, I don't know if it was the first time, but I remember specifically a time where I really wanted to say something so bad, but I knew that if I said it, we were just going to go, straight down the downward spiral. And it felt so intense. Like sometimes it almost feels like my skin's on fire. Like I have to say this thing. I have to make this point. And I was like, no. And I held it in. And about 10 minutes later, I was like, oh my God, I didn't die. And it's weird because, and it like from here, it sounds ridiculous, but when it's that intense, it is like, if I don't make this point, if I don't say this thing, I'm just gonna, burst into flames or something. And then I was like, oh, whoa, that didn't happen. And when you get that first like salient experience that you can remember, then you have something to draw on and be like, I remember that time that I didn't say that thing. And I felt better about myself for having the ability to withstand. I saw that I didn't die. And actually, if I were to be honest, I think the conflict actually resolved faster than when I keep charging. So it's just about building those moments and acknowledging your success, however small it is or seems.
I was just going to say that's very, very close to the solution that we ended up settling on. Now, when I need space, it's basically a matter of saying like, all right, I'm not going to respond. You can say anything you want right now. And then after that, I'm going to leave until I calm down. And that's what has worked for us. But it allows her to, I don't know if she's quite gotten enough reps, or at least the mindset of not wanting to say some of those things.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I can usually at least take one more like wave of comments and then I'm like, okay, great. That's the last thing, I'm leaving. But it is interesting that that's almost exactly the process or like structure that we landed on, is kind of this like, okay, I'm going to tell you what's going on. I'm going to give you time, like how much time this is going to take. And then through that negotiation, we found a workable middle ground.
Yeah, well then awesome. Congratulations. Yeah, that's awesome. Because it does work. It sounds so simple, but it really does work. Because it really then speaks to her that I know you want to talk about this still.
Yep.
Like, and we will.
Mhm.
We're just, you know, and that's actually a win-win.
Well, I had a question for you, given,
Yeah.
you know, the current global health crisis, and people, a lot of us are like in lockdown or shelter in place with our significant others and driving each other crazy,
Mm-hmm.
like my situation. so what do you suggest? How do we create peace when we're like 24/7 in the same place? Like what?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I think there's a lot of room here, and you find what works and use it. And so it's not a one size fits all for sure, but one of them is obvious of go in.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is amazing at, once he gets sucked into the computer, I can be talking to anyone on the phone as loudly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
He's not phased. So I'm like, oh, wow, I can't do that. I end up chiming into the conversation or whatever. But when I can tell when I'm kind of like chipping at him because I am bored and I just want engagement, that I'm like, hey, this is something that I'd like to be better at anyway. I don't want to eat, and he's obviously already entertained. Why am I bugging him? So I actually started taking doing with Mo Wills. It's for kids, but it's actually tapped me into some creativity. Coloring will stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. So there are things you can do to actually self-soothe. So getting curious about how can I self-soothe? Because a lot of times we're just bored. And so it's just looking at, hey, what's a creative way that I can actually entertain myself, maybe even learn something about myself. And then being gentle with ourselves, that there might be some settling in time, you know, of resisting. I don't want to read a book, but then you just pick one up and you start reading. You're like, hey, this is kind of nice. So that's one thing. The second one is to play with the situation. And it's easier, I think, if you have, but there are lots of resources online now, especially. I'd taken improv classes, and that just changed my whole life, because then nothing's serious anymore. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that you can't talk about or play with. And actually, in this time, I've created 2 characters that I used to censor myself so much, but now somebody else is in my space so much. It's going to come out. The crazy that's up here is just going to come out. Normally, he's actually gone about 50% of the time, so I don't have to worry about anybody seeing me. And I started doing it, and he started laughing. So now, okay, so I have Toothy Ruthie, and Supplement Shally. Mm-hmm. So those are just silly characters that I do, and he laughs. So then I just be her. So you could even come up with like, who's my alter ego? Who would I like to be right now? And just play with it. Or if they're bugging the crap out of you, one of the games in improv is just mirroring. And you do everything that they do. And that actually worked about getting an annoying little kid that wouldn't leave me alone at a party one time. I just started mirroring him, and he just looked at me and went away. And I was, because a lot of us were just screaming for attention. We're like, I don't know how to be with myself this much. Can you please save me? And we're all sort of being pushed into this at the same time. And so to just play with it, because it isn't, we don't get to say when it ends. So, you know, I had a client yesterday who was talking, her and her husband are having sort of the same thing. And one of their dynamics is like getting amped up where she's the mom and she tells him what to do. And he needs to be doing this with his time. but then wanting a partnership. So you can't be the mom and have a power dynamic if you want an equal partnership. So she's like, but then she started saying she was doing that and feeling really bad. I'm like, the judgment's not going to work. So just start being the most superior person you can and like amp it up, embellish it. Be like, as your superior, I really think I could live your life better than you. So here's what I think you should do with the day. And once you hear it, it's funny, you laugh at it, it's easier to let go. Once the other person sees that you see what you're doing, they let it go. Yeah. And then sometimes another third option is to just get really present and say, what would you like from me right now? We're not on the same page. How could we get on the same page together? What would be fun for both of us, And a lot of us have just never been faced with a point blank question to where we actually have to be, what am I doing? What am I fighting or resisting? What would I actually like to have happen here?
Right.
And so I guess those are my 3 ideas to start.
No, I love just the idea of being more playful about it. For me, though, I feel like it's not about wanting attention, is that I work from home. I'm busy.
Yeah.
What he wants the attention, and I'm like, get away from me. How do I create my sense of space, I guess, when we can't leave the house, I guess.
Do you actually have
we have separate rooms, so that's kind of one way where we've managed it. Just like, I'll be in my space. I write down when I'm like doing like a recording and I need it to be quiet. So that has helped. Little sticky notes in places, so that makes a difference.
What I would do, just because this is coming from my brain, I totally am like a 6 or 7 year old kid in a larger body. And I would be like, I'm going to go to my fort. You go to your fort. And at like 5 o'clock, let's switch forts or play in the same fort, and then just put a sign on your door, do not enter, in like scribbly pen or with stickers or something. You know what I mean? Like a monster on there or something. Just again, to just like play with the situation that is, and then if he comes in, look at how you're responding and being like, oh, I'm so annoyed, to just be like, wait, that annoyance actually could be a habit, like just a conditioned response. And it could actually pass faster if I actually get curious, is there something I can help you with? Or just, what, maybe I called you in here because I'm bored with what I'm doing, and you telepathically got my message, because that actually happens a lot too. And we just don't know that we're actually that connected people. So it's, to me, the cure, the answer is always in the curiosity, like what's actually going on here. So when you notice yourself getting annoyed, being, well, what else is available here? If I wasn't annoyed, what else could I experience?
Yeah, I like that. That's great. So Donovan's experienced the opposite end of the spectrum. Do you want to share what you're dealing with, Donovan?
Yeah, I would be very happy if my significant other was knocking on the door and coming in often. But in reality, she's in another state. And so we've been trying a couple things to try to like maintain, connection and like get enough quality time. But it is really difficult, especially since the longest we've been apart is 6 weeks. We had a trip planned for the 6-week mark, which is exactly when everything shut down and travel stopped and all that. So now we're on like 8 or 9, and like we're not having any fights or anything, but it's just been kind of hard to maintain the same level of connection, especially with a fat question mark in terms of, hey, when do we get to see each other again? Before we could kind of hold that up as like, cool, we're looking forward to this is like, get through this week, then this one, and then we're here. But now it's like, wait an indefinite period of time, and then eventually probably we'll see each other.
Yeah. And I totally get that. So my husband works events and he travels, and we have opposite processes, because when he would leave, he'd be excited about the event. And so he didn't really experience any sadness. It was all excitement. But I would experience immediate like, oh, sad, I'm missing you kind of thing. But as the weeks got by, I got used to the space, and he would start missing me. But at like about 3 weeks, he'd be coming home, missing me, loving me, and I'd be like, stranger danger. What are you doing? Like, me and the dog had a flow, and you are interrupting and harshing our mellow. And so we had to figure out in a time like this, it's like, yeah, we kind of know this is our time frame, but this is out of our control. So how to connect deeper anyway. And I had a couple of meditation instructors at Bastille, and they did a year-long silent retreat where men and women were kept separate.
Oh, wow.
But they decided that at 5 o'clock each evening, they would meditate together and meditate on being together. And they were like, we grew so much in that year without having any physical connection or even words, but we felt so much closer. So it is a lie that you actually have to be near somebody to connect.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, how do you connect? And if we're looking at like what Brene Brown, it's the vulnerability, it's the willingness to share deeper parts of yourself. So if I would just be spitballing ideas to actually give you tools, because I hate when people give you things to think about, but they don't actually give you anything you can do.
Yeah. We're all about that. Tools.
Totally.
We love tools.
One of the things that I have loved when Pete's done, when he's on a trip, is when he sends me a song. And this is where we differ. He'd send me a song and I'd be like, oh, that's really nice, the song. But I wanted to know why he chose that song. And when he did, I was like, oh my goodness, that's like, it was really, really touching. And one year I did that for Christmas gifts. Instead of getting anybody an actual gift, I gave them a song and said, here's why I chose this song for you. So you could do exchanges like that. Another thing is, one year for my mom, I made her a children's book of her life, you know, her name's Sandy. And one of the kids she babysat called her Sandy Dandy. So it was Sandy Dandy the Dandelion. So it was like, you know, you could write almost like a love letter of this is who you are to me, and let people see themselves through your eyes, through your artistic expression, be it music or drawing or poetry or something. So those are a couple of ideas. I am also in the midst of, I have a class called Marriage Improv. It's really just like an improv for couples to just shift their ways of being with each other and communicating, but it's all game based. So that's fun. So when that's ready to release, I'd say jump in.
Yeah. When it's ready, send it over. We are looking for things to do. So
totally. Yeah. And then it could be fun as far as my sister and I have even played board games by Google Hangout. I mean, I had the dice and I would move her piece, but we got to play together. So there actually is a lot that we can still do together. And the whole thing about connection is just how present are you? And sometimes the looking forward is awesome. And then sometimes it takes us out of, well, we're actually here having a conversation. Mm-hmm. You know, what's on your mind? And the connection, as far as I see it, again, can't speak enough about curiosity. It's when you're just interested in the other person. And then also saying, I'd like to share this part of myself with you. You know, could you listen? And that's when we get the real connection to where you guys could come out of this and be like, you're the coolest person I've ever met, you know, and then you know how to entertain yourselves and be okay on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stands out for me is the difference between, like, we had previously been doing a lot of, because we were both like super busy. Mm-hmm. So we were both doing a lot of like, oh, like what stuff have you been doing? Mm-hmm. Right. As like a main topic. And shifting away from that, because now it's like, what have you been doing? Like sleeping, eating, pretending to work.
Right.
Like shifting from that into these more creative avenues, like things that I don't want to say we didn't have time for before, because we could have made time, but we chose not to, right? Like we would just catch up on events and stuff. But shifting into some of these more creative things, I think would be a really good idea for us.
Totally. And it's funny that you say that, because so I actually have a twin sister, and we're both kind of like word nerds and feeling, like we will talk about feelings. And our mom is not that way at all. My mom, it's like, she'll tell you what's on the grocery list and think we've connected. And we're both just like, oh, our soul is just dangling there waiting for someone to receive it, but she's just not there. So it's funny that, yeah, a lot of people, and there's no wrongness, but the level of connection with, this is what I did, here's my status report, you know, and this actually is a great opportunity to be, I have this time for myself to be like, what am I doing? Who am I? What am I being? And then to actually do that with another person, whether they're right next door or, you know, a state or two away, you know. And then again, I sometimes go to 10-year-old boy and be like, what did I do today? I chewed this. Do you want to see me chew it? I'll chew it. And I chewed it this way and then this way. And just like having fun with it, because I just think that's a better alternative than, you know, lamenting about how bored and sucky this is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like, as far as, and anybody could do this, and because it's not space dependent, but you could do mashups, you know, like there's so many video creation tools, and you could be like, you know, make a little mix together, a little montage, you know. If you want to go from beginner to a pro, you do a montage.
That is a pro. Any girl would love that, by the way, Donovan.
Oh, my connection's breaking up. Can't hear. Anyway, next question.
Oh, I love all these ideas, especially the one you said about, you know, just writing out like who you are to me, to your partner, and just like do that as an exercise to build connection. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been really nice in terms of, I think I really appreciate when you share ideas, you share a range of ideas, and I think it will apply to people in almost any situation, right? Like just each of the techniques or tools that you've listed will apply to like different sorts of people or people in different circumstances. And I really appreciate that, because like you're saying, first of all, a lot of people don't share tools at all. Just like, oh, to connect, what you need to do is connect. It's like,
right, exactly.
Okay, thanks. So
let me
I
put
just
another thing
appreciate
on your
that.
list of things to do is think about this. Think
Yeah.
about it this way. Yeah.
Mhm.
But then how do you apply it? That's always been my, and yeah.
Right. Because it's the application that actually gets you to happy, in my opinion.
Totally.
Yeah.
And actually, like, the biggest thing I said again is your attitude and your thoughts. That is something that nobody can take away from you, and that's what you have control over. So you can look at it as if this sucks, we're apart, and we have no control over when it's going, or hey, I have no control over when it's going to end, so what can we do to make it fun?
Right.
And neither one of them are right or wrong, but I know for me which one feels better versus which one makes me grumpier. And I lived in that one for a long time, actually thinking that was more intelligent. You know, like the pessimism and the cynicism was a higher form of intelligent, and then wondering why other people could be happy and I couldn't. There wasn't actually a reason. I just chose to focus on that. And when I shifted what I was paying attention to and how I framed it, then everything started to open up in a different way. And then things like that I never would have considered as improv, because I'm talkative and I'm boisterous, but I'm not naturally theatrical. Like, I'm not a gifted actor. So that really was a big thing to jump into, but how much I got out of it was just amazing, you know? And then just random things then when you're just like, well, how can I make it fun? It was a friend that I haven't talked to for years, but somehow that day she came across my Facebook feed with the lunch doodles with Mo Willems. And I was like, I'm going to doodle with this guy. And I'm seriously engrossed. I become like a 6-year-old kid just being like, oh, tell me your stories and let's doodle. And it's been fun to discover myself and be uncensored, because I'm in my house by myself.
Well, it has been an absolute pleasure having you as
Awesome.
our guest.
Yeah, it's so
Fun,
to talk to you guys.
actually. It's fun to have guests. So we'll have to do it again sometime for sure. And yeah, I just want to acknowledge you for all the tools and the tips that you're offering all these couples, whether they're together or separated right now with the whole circumstance of the world. And yeah, we just loved having you.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much for hosting and having these talks. Like, the more we can make this what we're talking about,
right?
Like, it's just so elevating and yeah, inspiring and inviting. So thank you for having it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
All righty, thanks.